The gentleman, in fact, was born right around here.
Yeah, he was born on West 165th.
And introduce yourself. That's why I was thinking that's all.
Hi, my name is Regina Penn. How is everyone?
Give Regina Penn a big hand, everybody. As Miss Christian says, this youngin' knows you love Frankie Lyman, right?
Oh, we're gonna start with that. Yes, he is my favorite singer of all time. Yes.
How old are you? I'm gonna get your age.
I'm almost 30.
Almost 30. Hey, you see that? Hey! You don't like that other stuff they got out there now?
I like some of it, not all of it.
Yeah, man, I do too. You like some of it. I don't like all leave much of desire.
Yeah, but there's just something so angelic about the music of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. How you could just sing on the street corners and really recognize artistry. It's just something so magical and so beautiful about it. Nowadays, it's just really auto-tuned and a lot of different things going on. It's too busy. I just like the simplistic beauty of the music back then.
I could sit back here, I could sit back and, well, I don't want to use the expression, listen to that kind of music. I could take a bath and be comfortable.
Yeah.
Or do something around the house. I feel much more comfortable doing. Well, there's other stuff. I said, what did they say? What is this and that? And then they ride around in the neighborhood and making all that noise, and then they wonder why they get a ticket. Because I don't want to go good. You should get a ticket because I don't want to hear your noise.
And the thing is, Frankie Lyman actually grew up on West 165th, and Ronnie Spector, or Ronnie Bennett, she actually grew up on West 163rd.
Yes, the Rockets.
She was born and raised in Spanish Harlem, so I've never had the pleasure of meeting her, but she's somebody who I actually admire as well.
Oh, Ronnie. Oh, I've met her once. Oh. Yeah. She did. Oh, she's something else. She'll tell you. She'll give you the dirt now. I mean, she'll dish it out. I'll tell you, wonderful lady, very nice lady.
Yeah.
Also too, why you like Frankie Lyman?
We're gonna talk about. I think he was the real first icon of that rock and roll era for people who were 18 and younger.
Yes.
He was the first black rock and roll star.
He was the first superstar, yeah.
Yeah, the very first black superstar. So, I have all of his songs. I know all of his songs by heart. I was like, maybe one day I should actually write a book on him because I know everything about him. He was actually he's actually the second oldest. He has 3 older brothers.
Yeah, Lewis,
Howard, and Timothy Lyman.
Oh,
and then
okay.
Lewis actually passed in 2012. He was a phenomenal performer.
Oh, Lewis, okay.
Yeah.
How'd you get this influence by your parents or what?
I don't know. I just have an appreciation for good quality items, including music. So that's just included within that.
You don't meet too many young people, even people at our age who have good quality of music. Because sometimes, because people say, oh, the young people. Well, the young people got to get it from somebody, and right. from the older set,
Right. I mean, all of that. I mean, Frankie Lyman, the Teenagers, Smokey, the Intruders, Mary Wells. I mean, I can go back further.
Mary Wells, Motown's first superstar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not Miss Ross. Mary Wells was Motown's first superstar.
Yep, she was the first $1 million seller for
Motown. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have Mr. Benjamin. We put it up on the YouTube. They got a lot of good hits too. Mm-hmm. And he was up here. He signed books. And he in fact he got a tape of Mary Wells. Sometimes the last recording that Mary Wells made. Our last interview they did with Mary Wells, and he got it from somebody, and the voice wasn't, but one thing about her, she was persistent. Mm-hmm. After she left Motown, she was determined to sit back here and still make records.
Right.
And you don't meet a lot of people like that.
Mm-hmm. Very, very.
What other songs you like?
Other songs or other types of music?
Yes, songs.
Everything. Pretty much everything. I'm across.
How about country? You like country music?
I like some of it. Country music really tells a story. You know, it's always good to hear a story.
Do you like the old kind of country music?
Uh,
You know, it's like 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 Dolly or
Dolly Parton.
yeah, Kenny, like Kenny,
Yeah.
Johnny Cash, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Johnny Cash. I mean, he's
Oh, please, yes.
He's all black in honor of him today.
You know that song I like with him and Drew Carter. I'm going to Jackson. I used to love that one. That was my favorite one, though.
Oh.
You know, but also too, Regina, don't you think it's very important for people to diversify themselves and learn other music too,
Oh, absolutely.
and other, you think that's important?
I mean, just across the board, not just with music, but just with everything, just to kind of get in touch with a lot of different things. You know, well, especially I think as Americans, we'll watch so much television, but we won't pick up a book and read for anything, right? And we'll ask like like any type of book. You know, we'll ask, is it on television? Do we have the documentary? Do we have the DVD? And we really don't read. And I just kind of like to expand my knowledge, especially with me being a counselor. I just kind of like to really get in there and explore.
You got a bachelor's degree, right?
No, I have a master's.
You
I have a master's in counseling. So yeah,
Oh.
so that's kind of why I identified with the talk today, especially talking about mental health.
Okay.
I do a lot of mental health and career counseling as well, and then I'm also working on my PhD. So
Give the sister a big hand. Oh, this sister is moving. You heard that, Professor? Right?
Oh yeah, I heard
Yeah,
it.
remember I was trying to put her in that slot somewhere, but we won't discuss that on the air. Okay. You did an interview for me. We'll be running it soon for Fashion Week. Remember you interviewed someone?
I did.
How'd you
I
what
helped
was it?
Lenny out. I interviewed a fashion designer. Her name is Virginia Cathy. I worked with her, so I'm a therapist slash model at times, and I modeled for a designer called Virginia Cathy last month, a few months ago,
Yeah.
and recently did an interview with her for a Lenny show that I don't know if you put up yet.
No.
She's great, and she was instrumental in helping me. I'm actually doing a magazine next month too for Honeybee Natural Magazine. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. It's a natural hair magazine. And it's just something about appreciating your natural beauty and who you are. So that doesn't mean you necessarily have to have your hair natural, it's just embracing who you are as an individual. So that's really what the magazine emphasizes, and that's what I really want to represent.
Give her a big hand.
Thank you. So I'm kind of all over the place. It's like I said, I model, I'm a therapist. Love Frankie. What else do? I volunteer. I do a lot of different things. I believe it's really good to just kind of expand your mind, expand your knowledge, and not just be put in a little box where this is who you are, this is what you do. I believe, you can do anything that you really put your mind to. And aside from money, I believe, time is your most valuable asset. that you have.
I'm gonna tell you something. What time is it now? Well, it's after 5 o'clock. We taping the show. Tomorrow is going to be 5 o'clock again, but it's gonna be a different day, right?
Different day.
Time keeps rolling
Yeah.
and rolling. It looks like almost over the table. Almost
Yeah.
but half the year. The Drew Color is half the year gone already.
Right. It's amazing. It would never be April 18th, 2015 ever again. So this is the only day that we actually have. So I always try to think about that in my mind and try to make the most of it, and and be happy where I'm at. So yeah.
By the time this show is aired, when we going to air the show? So when we going to air?
Another week?
Well, probably the middle of the week. By the middle of the week, by next Saturday, you'll be able to see the show because you'll be back home.
I will be.
Right, that's right.
You'll be
I
back
will.
home to remote. Where are you from?
I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm from Wisconsin. So it's not just farmland. We do have cities here. I'm from. I believe the second biggest city, which is Milwaukee. Madison is our capital.
Okay.
So yes, and I'll be going home. I'll be seeing family, visiting loved ones. So yes, very, very blessed indeed. So yes.
What New York? What you like about New York?
This is such a big question. One of the real reasons that I actually came out here and moved to New York because I love the limitless possibilities of actually being in New York City. I love the fact that you have literally everything that you need within this one city, right? New York City. I love the culture. I mean, I loved everything about it. It's not all peachy keen. It's not all roses, right? There are definitely some hard times. It's very expensive.
Yeah, everything keeps going up, going across the bridge. You go across that George Washington Bridge. Look how much it costs now. Even you go from borough to borough, it costs you money.
Right, and in being here, making my salary, and I was making a fairly decent salary, but once they taxed me to death, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And because I've never heard of a city tax where I'm from, we don't have city tax. We have state and federal. So they were taking out an extra chunk. So which is a whole another subject that I won't get on, but it was just certain dynamics and things are very different here. Yeah.
You pay for the name, right?
You pay for everything. You pay for everything. So
It's a nice city though.
Pimp City.
Right.
That's what it is.
Did you say pimps?
Pimp City.
Pimps. I was shocked when I came here and the average cost for a studio was $2,000. Not that I didn't do my research prior, but just kind of really seeing the cost of what you get. When back home, you can get a studio for $400.
That's right.
So $2,000 for a box was just something that I was not used to, and this is not me trying to try to talk down about New York City, but it's just the reality of where we live, and not everybody is affluent where they can actually afford those prices.
No, they can't.
I mean, I could go.
You were talking about like a few minutes ago you went to the store down the block or whatever. If you live in other places, I always tell people when you step 1 foot out of New York City, I don't want to use the expression, you're dead meat if you don't have a car. I mean, you are dead meat when you don't have a car. You step 1 foot out of New York City, and those people don't ride the railroad. The minute you step a foot out and ride, the subway, you ride all over the place, and we weren't going to discuss that. But you ride, say, the Long Island Railroad, the Metro North, and the New Jersey Transit. The minute you park your red to that seat, and the minute it leaves the station, they looking for a ticket.
Yeah.
And then they going by distance. And don't miss your stop. I remember I took the Long Island Railroad, I missed the stop. I said, oh Lord, I dozed off. I said, oh Lord, I'm going to run. I said, get me off. And then the guy was nice enough. He said, well, look, go back there and tell them that you missed the train. But how many nice people you meet out there like that,
Oh, I've met some really nice people here, very nice people. There was actually a kind of a prejudice, I think, toward New Yorkers sometimes, and I've heard different rumors about New York. You can't ask a New Yorker anything. I've gotten lost in the city. I still get lost, and you can ask a New Yorker, and people were so nice. And so I don't know why that stigma is attached to some New Yorkers. I mean, you get rude and obnoxious people anywhere you go. So, yeah.
On that note, we would like to thank you so much for coming to the LMS show. You made LMS and sisters. You'll stop here. We really, you'll get a chance to see. You can tell everybody. You can tell everybody back home that
I was with Lenny. Was talking. I was with all of these great people. Yes, I will tell everybody.
And you said, and then your mom would be so proud that you were on the LMS show.
Right.
And take it down. And welcome to the LMS show. Give yourselves a big hand. Ray! Oh my goodness, Lord have mercy on my soul. This is the place you want to be. The LMS show. Nowhere else. Seen locally and seen around the world. We got the countries that just check it in. England, everybody just check it. They just love the LMS show. We would like to thank you so much for coming to our space today. And this space, not our space, this is everyone. Sisters Uptown Bookstore. Give them a big hand. In a few minutes, we're going to take it down. The first black man that broke the barrier in baseball, Jackie Robinson, and Mr. Williams is going to talk about him in a few minutes. Take it down. And welcome back to the LMS show. Give yourselves a big hand again. I met this young gentleman. In fact, his sisters. His mother, in fact, wrote a book about her times during the Second World War, when she was a GI's wife, right?
Yes, she was.
A GI's wife, and oh boy, the segregation back then was running rapid. I mean, you can do anything. You know, everybody sit back and think about how some of our brothers and sisters, you know, they take things for granted because it wasn't like that. So-called y'all got free in the last 50 years, and you ain't really free. But without no further ado, I'd like to introduce to Mr. Mac Williams. Give him a big hand, everybody.
Thank you very much.
You told me about this book, Jackie Robinson, and you read it to the children today. What was their reaction?
Well, first of all, I want to just thank you so much for having me on the LMS show. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be at Sisters. What a great venue this is. And we had a great time earlier this afternoon reading to the kids. As a matter of fact, one of the kids, Sister Jennifer's grandson, read to us.
Isn't that
He
something?
read the book to us.
Isn't
And then we
that-
got into a little Q&A afterwards.
Oh, that is so nice. Well, they say when two or more gather, you know, whatever. I'm glad on that. Tell us a bit about this book about Jackie Robinson.
Well, what I first say is I started doing it a long time ago.
Okay, how long?
If you would believe, probably about 17 years. I would start and then put it down, and then start back and put it down. And ultimately, I thought, I've just got to get it out and get it done. Because actually, in all these starts and stops, every time I picked it up, I had something new. And then I'd go back to the illustrator and say, I need some more illustrations. I need some more illustrations. But what also happened was, with technology, the expense of publishing a full color book independently went down, and it made it much easier to get this done.
You publish this independently, right?
Yes, I did.
You see the rise of independent publishers. You know, people like you write, who write their own books and publish their own books. You see the rise of that.
Well, one reason I believe that it is rising is because you don't need to be endorsed, if you will, by Simon and Schuster or.
Well, you won't mention names, but
my bad.
But you know, that's okay. But you don't have to be endorsed by a publishing company, right?
Right.
Okay.
If you have something that you feel is valid,
I read a couple of Simon Schuster, but they're pretty good. But go ahead.
if you have something that you feel is valid, you can get it out there before the public. You don't have to wait for somebody else to say that what you have is worthwhile being read by the public. And so that is the good thing about the rise of independent publications.
Jackie Robinson. You know, sometimes we hear this story over and over again, but it has to be reinforced. Why?
Well, the thing about Jackie Robinson, I've always been in awe of people who gave of themselves in a way that many people would not have. A case in point, Martin Luther King. This is a man who could have settled into a life, a very comfortable life, as a Baptist preacher. And he could have had, 2 houses in the suburbs and a big car and this, that, and the other. But he sacrificed his life for us, essentially. And the things that we are able to do now are in part because of the people who sacrificed, like Martin Luther King, like Jackie Robinson.
He took a lot of, Mr. Ricky had other people in mind, other folks in mind, but he didn't want them. He wanted Jackie. Why did he want Jackie?
Well, one reason that he wanted Jackie was that he knew that Jackie had an Army background, he had a college background, and he knew that Jackie was a leader. He knew Jackie was very intelligent, and he knew that Jackie was tough. And by being tough, he didn't necessarily mean somebody who could throw down with their fists. He needed somebody who was intellectually tough, who was spiritually tough, because he knew that there were going to be people who were going to get on Jackie, who were going to try to rile him. And the reason was that if Jackie fought back, he would be described by the media, by the other players and managers, etc., as being a hothead, temperamental. And that would have set the cause of integration in the major leagues back by many years.
I think about it, like, I remember when I was working on that plantation, and they had someone told me that I was one angry man. Well, I should be angry for a whole lot of reasons, And we had to stand up for you. You had to stand up for you. Well, sometimes even working on that plantation, I had to eat crow.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in certain cases, the Jackie had to eat crow in a sense because the places that he couldn't go to some of these places, like they say like to a restaurant or like down south restaurant and places like that, right?
That's right. In fact, in the early years, as depicted in the movie 42, he couldn't stay with the team as they were in spring training down south. He had to stay in the homes of local African Americans. And this is one of the reasons that Ricky wanted a person like that who was mentally tough. Because I had some relatives who one dated somebody in the Negro Leagues. Another uncle was very familiar with the time period. And most people would tell you that Robinson was not the best baseball player in the Negro Leagues when he got the call. But he was the right individual for that time.
Also, too, he opened up the door because remember, it's not. I'm not bashing the Yankees, okay? We have Yankee fans in here. The Yankees were one of the last teams, and Boston was the last team that took. Well, they had, you see how that they little rivalry, but they were the last two teams that would accept black players.
That's right.
And Latin players too, okay? You have A-Rod and everybody, but they were the last ones to accept them, right?
And it's funny, you look at the Red Sox now and they...
Oh, yeah.
Full of black and Latino players.
Oh, yeah. Because, the whole thing about they wanted to win. But also, too, you mentioned in this book, it was good for Jackie. It was good for the major, the major leagues, baseball league, but also too, the black teams. How it was the beginning, and then it was almost like the demise. What you say about that?
Well, that was absolutely true. I think on April 15th, 1947, which is the first day that Robinson played in the major leagues, that date more or less sounded the death knell for the Negro Leagues. It wasn't immediate, but as more and more blacks went into the major leagues, the attendance in the Negro Leagues went down because the stars were in the major leagues. And unfortunately, as we were talking about earlier when the kids were here, unfortunately, we, over the hundreds of years, being fed the diet of the other man is better than you. And so whether it was in the Negro Leagues or restaurants or hotels or whatever, when we got the opportunity to go to this place that previously segregation had kept us out of, we no longer wanted as much to go to these places which had sustained us when we could not go to X hotel, X restaurant, the Brooklyn Dodgers, whatever. And because of that, the Negro Leagues went down.
Also, too, during the time of segregation, the Yankees, when they left town, as an example, they left town. They go on a road trip like back in the in the 30s and 40s, and they used to have like Negro Leagues coming in. And in fact, the team at the ballpark made money off of the Negro Leagues.
They sure did.
They made a fortune, and as a result, later on, the ones who really got hit by this would be like the leagues, like in the smaller markets, because they used to rely on that. Mm-hmm. They got beating out of this too, right?
Yes, they did. And an interesting point about that which you just mentioned, which I touched on in the book. While they would do the rentals when the Yankees were on the road trip, the black players wouldn't play games. And during one of those games, one of the great Negro League players named Josh Gibson hit a home run totally out of the stadium.
What?
Like out onto the street. And in fact, there has never been another player who has hit a fair ball out of Yankee Stadium.
Even all these great players that they've been signed up with these $1 million contracts and
with steroids,
and they go astray. Mention your name, but they haven't been repeated, right?
It's never been repeated. Mantle hit a foul ball out of Yankee Stadium, but no one has ever hit a fair ball for an actual home run out of.
In the book,
stadium.
you said that you mentioned that Jackie Robinson led the way for. This is a little picture. This is an illustration of Rachel Robinson is very active with the Jackie Robinson Foundation, right?
Yes, she is.
She's very active. Also, too, Jackie Robinson was an early investor in the Freedom Bank, one of the Free National Bank.
Yes, he was.